If you take a cursory glance around the wide world of football conversation, there's really only one thing that seems to unite NFL fans regardless of their team affiliation: hatred of the referees. The men in stripes have always been a controversial part of the game, but these days the microscope seems like it's more magnified than ever on each and every call the officials make. And for good reason too. Some pretty blatantly incorrect calls in the 2019 playoffs have many calling for changes to the rules themselves. But while arguments rage on about the future of officiating in the league, I'd like to take a quick moment today to reflect on that 1 3-week stretch of time not too long in the past where referees themselves were the ones that deserved way more penalty flags than anyone else on the playing field. Let's rewind the tape. In the year of 2012, NFL referees were unhappy with the terms of their contracts and planned to reopen negotiations with the league after having to wait through the messy 2011 players' lockout to get themselves heard. Their terms were what I'd consider as completely reasonable as a key cog in the lucrative NFL machine. As any good union's focus should be, the Referee Association was concerned with the money for their services, specifically their retirement plans. The net cost of every single one of their demands was estimated to be around $3.2 million per year total, or 0.04% of the NFL's $9 billion of revenue each season, what many experts say would be considered a rounding error in the grand scheme of the league. Nevertheless, Roger Goodell and company told them to beat it, despite concerns from many referees that using subpar officiating talent would jeopardize both game quality and player safety. Goodell was then quoted as saying, "We did this 11 years ago. The game does not stop." Okay, Roger, I guess you're in charge. So who have you got for us instead? While Goodell was right about how there had been an NFL referee lockout in 2001, there was a big difference this time around that posed a major challenge for those trying to quickly assemble a whole new set of scab referee crews. This was the fact that the next best professional referees, those officiating D1 college ball, would not be allowed by any of the major conferences to leave their positions, forcing the NFL to look elsewhere. So Roger, we struck out there. Looks like we're going to have to take it down another level. Yikes. This is more like it. Since the league couldn't have their first or second choices, they had to settle quite a bit. 0 Division I college officials were hired as replacement refs. Instead, the NFL had to bring in referees with regular jobs who just worked as high school or low division college officials, maybe a few arena football gigs here and there. In case the legitimacy of this group wasn't suffering enough already, they also decided to hire guys that ref for the Lingerie Football League. Oh, sorry, I read that wrong. Guys that used to ref for the Lingerie Football League before they were fired for being awful at their job, in order to maintain the integrity of a football game between women in their underwear. So yeah, that was the state of things heading into the year. Soon the regular season would be upon us with no professional referees in sight. And before I get into the list of all the egregious mistakes that were about to occur, let me say that I feel legitimately bad for the replacement refs who were put into this position by the league, as this was entirely a result of the NFL's inability to make the professional referees a priority, and as a result, their product would suffer big time. But hey, at least people got some quality water cooler talk out of it the day after the games left everyone confused as hell. Week 1 of the regular season kicked things off with a bang, and right off the bat, players and coaches seemed to be taking advantage of all the replacements that the NFL's lights were much too bright for. See, traditionally when a new referee officiates, there are 6 veteran officials on the crew with the rookie, just so there aren't as many botched calls as a result of inexperience alone or being bullied into it by the players and coaches. The replacement referees wasted no time in making the games much slower, including a game between the Eagles and Browns in Week 1 requiring 6 minutes of reviewing a fumble recovery, just to find out the play they just spent 6 minutes reviewing was in fact not actually reviewable. And with that, anyone who wanted a sequel to Inception got what they were hoping for. But at the very least, that stuff didn't actively harm the game. That stuff was still to come. Now, there were a couple of instances of accidentally awarding extra timeouts or challenges, but the bulk of controversy would come from the officials' lack of awareness for the sake of player safety and in very obviously game-determining situations. Just as the professional refs had foreseen before the lockout, players realized they could get away with more roughness and extracurricular activities than usual, and many of them took advantage of it, with fights being extremely prevalent and often inadequately broken up. And to make matters worse for the league's already brewing concussion scandals, Darius Hayward-Bay, who played for the Raiders at the time, took a vicious helmet-to-helmet hit from Steelers safety Ryan Mundy that knocked him completely unconscious, and he'd have to spend the night in the hospital. No flag on the play. This kind of nonsense would start moving the needle on discussions between the NFL and the referees, but soon enough, a couple of events in Week 3 of the regular season would force the league into putting ink on paper. Now, I'd like to preface this next section by saying that the two situations I'm about to show you are so hilariously rare that we are honestly all lucky to have these moments in history. Exhibit A. A primetime matchup between the Patriots and Ravens on national television had some of the worst officiating yet, with multiple penalties on Baltimore that were questionable at best, generating a less than loving reaction from the home crowd.
He got a flag. He's trying to call timeout. It's the loudest manure chant I've ever heard.
And following that gem, we got to watch the game come down to a last-second field goal to win or lose the game for the Ravens. But of course, it couldn't just be that simple.
Justin Tucker for the win. Whoa, baby! Oh, just good! And the Patriots are saying no!
Oh, Wilford can't believe it.
Even though the refs technically got this one right, Mr. Belichick and the Patriots were still a little unhappy to see that the kick wasn't going to be reviewed with how close it appeared to be. And it couldn't have been reviewed anyway, but that didn't stop Bill from earning a $50,000 fine for touching an official. But with that said, the field goal debacle couldn't lay a finger on what was about to happen the very next night, because Exhibit B would forever be known in NFL history as the Fail Mary. Monday Night Football between the Seahawks and Packers, less than 24 hours removed from the Pats-Ravens game the night before. With the teams playing through awful calls all night long, we were led up to a final drive to try and win it for the Seahawks, with time slipping away from them. After a botched pass interference call gave Russell Wilson a chance to win the game on a final play, he launched one into the end zone. Now, this is something that I can't recall having ever seen in the NFL before this play, so I can understand why the referees were so confused on what call to make. However, after careful review of the play, it was the consensus among most people that Jennings of the Packers had first possession of the ball, which would have effectively ended the game at that moment. Instead, Seattle would be given a victory on that walk-off touchdown, and the absolutely hellacious media cycle that followed that game would force the NFL back to the negotiating table, as Roger Goodell would later admit. So after multiple months of tough guy Roger insisting that the league wouldn't change at all with replacement officials, he was finally backed into enough of a corner to make a deal to get the original referees back on the field. Here's something no one ever thought they'd see. Yeah, those guys are waving to crowds of cheering fans. The fans were celebrating at the sight of referees. Let that one sink in. After the real refs were back, everything returned to normal for the most part, and as the season continued on, people gradually settled back into complaining about the regular referees just as much as they had for the replacements. Even though this whole situation has forever stained Roger Goodell's image as a commissioner, I'll always look back on it with a smile, even though Packers fans might have a bit of a different outlook. And while the first 3 weeks of the 2012 season will always be remembered as one of the most bizarre and comical times in the history of the league, at least it serves as a lesson to football fans everywhere that sometimes you don't know how good you have it until it's gone. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video and made it this far, please consider subscribing and liking down below. It really helps the channel out. And thank you guys a ton for 5,000 subscribers. It's an incredible milestone to hit this early, and I can guarantee you we're just getting started. Until next time, take care.